My name is Rebecca Perley. I've been here at the university for about 10 years. I've taught a variety of the classes, but my work experience is in long-term care. So I'd be happy to talk to any of you about skilled nursing or assisted living facilities. I was the administrator of a skilled nursing facility. My doctorate is in behavioral health. And yeah, I was not a fan of APA. I think that a lot of people have made comments about like that I'm pretty strict on it. And I think that I am uh, because Dr. Martinez and I, we really want what's best for you. And we're trying to help you prep for graduate school and maximize your points in undergraduate school. So some professors emphasize it more than others, but in graduate school, it's really an expectation, especially if you go on to a doctorate program. I mean, they just expect you to know it. And there's so many other stressors in these higher levels of education that we just would like you to be able to not have this be a distraction for you. So that is why we are helping, we hope to help you maximize your points by doing this workshop. Okay. All right, Dr. Martinez, would you like to go ahead and start with your PowerPoint presentation?
Okay, sure will. Do I have sharing privileges, Gabe?
I believe you should.
Okay.
It's not. Make sure it is.
Okay. Okay. I don't know why this always wants to annoy me. All right. Okay, guys. This is this is a PowerPoint that I put together that it has to do with APA 7th edition. And if I can somehow manage to get this screen moved so I can get, there it is. Okay. I'm technologically inept today. Okay, so this is the 7th edition, and many of you, especially those that have had Dr. Perley or myself prior to this, were using the 6th edition, and there are some pretty drastic changes. So, but we're gonna go through today, and then I can't see y'all because I only have one screen. So, and I'm trying right now to get this out so I can read it. Okay, all right, so this is a quick reference guide. These are just some basic things that y'all need to know, just really basic things with APA. All the lines after the first line of each entry in your reference list should be indented 1/2 inch. This is called outdenting or hanging indent. So a lot of you are used to the indenting it the first line and then everything after not being indented, but APA, for reasons they only know, want to have the top line up against the flush left and the rest of them indented. I think it has something to do with being able, the author standing out as opposed to the author, and it's the first thing you see. Now, the author's names are inverted, and that would be the last name first, and then the initials. And a lot of you have problems with that. You tend to want to put the entire first name on there instead of just the initials. And APA says only initials. And when you put, if they have 2 initials, then be sure that you put a space. For instance, it would be Martinez, comma, space, L period, space, K period, comma. So you need to have all those spaces in there in order for it to be correct. And if in the new edition of APA, you can have up to 20 authors written there, as opposed to just putting et al. And you list them by last names and initials. Remember that commas separate them. And after the first 19 authors, you use an ellipsis in place of the remaining other, if it's more than that, 20. Reference list entries should be alphabetized by the name of the first author of each work. This is real important for y'all to think about, because if you're writing a paper and you happen to be writing it with, let's say, a professor, typically the first author will more than likely be the professor if you're doing research for them, and then you'll be like the second author or the third author. But the placement of the names actually indicates how important you were in that paper. So first author is the main person who wrote the paper, and then the other authors are contributing authors. And in academia, this is a real important thing to consider. So, and if you have more than one article by the same author, you have or multiple author references with the exact same authors, then you need to list them by the year of publication, starting with the earliest. Now, people's tendency is to start with the most recent, is that's what people want to do generally. But what you do in the reference list is you start with the earliest article, and then you progress down to the most recent. When you're doing it, several journal articles or several books by the same author. So this is another thing that people have trouble with, students have trouble with. When you're writing it in the reference list, you capitalize all the major words in the journal titles, not the article title, but the journal title. Anybody tell me why you would capitalize the names in the journal title? Anybody? Okay. All right. It's because it's a proper name. If you have, let's say, I used to have a journal called Workforce Forum. That's the name of the journal. So it would be, you'd capitalize workforce and you would capitalize forum. If it was a title, as opposed to being a name, then you would not capitalize every word in it. But remember, proper nouns are always capitalized no matter who or what you're doing it in. In other words, APA, MLA, or whatever it happens to be, Chicago, you always cap proper nouns. Okay, when referring to books, chapters, articles, or web pages, you capitalize the first letter or the first word of a title and the first, and then if there's a subtitle, which would be like after the colon, then you capitalize the first word of that also. You do not capitalize the first letter of the second word in a hyphenated compound. So if it's a proper noun, like if it's a hyphenated compound word like Martinez dash Perley, then you would capitalize both. But typically, if it's just a regular word, then you would only capitalize the first one. You italicize titles of longer works, such as books and journals. You do not italicize, underline, or put quotes around titles of shorter works, such as journal articles or essays. Now, I'm going to emphasize, and Dr. Perley is going to go over it with you, but Purdue OWL is an incredible website as far as being able to just find out what's right and what's wrong. APA also puts out the APA manual, and they put out one now called the APA Student Manual, which caters specifically to things that students most often use. Now, this is actually, I know all of you students are always asking for examples of work. So what this is a template. And if you look at where it says author, and then it's got AA, that would be the initials, the year of publication, the title of the work, and the publisher. Now, this has changed from last year, or from the 6th edition, which required you to put where the publisher was at. Now they don't even feel the need for that anymore. So you just need the name of the publisher. So if you look at that and then look down, and I have it spelled out for you again, author, last name, initials, then space between the initials if more than one, the title of the work, and remember you only capitalize the first word unless it's a proper noun, and the first word after the colon. Now, if you look back up where it says the very first sentence, where it says the author and the year of publication, notice that the title of the work is in italics. So when you look at this template, you can see what you need to do. What needs to be in italics, what doesn't need to be in italics. Nothing is bolded. Notice, please. And then there's an example right below it showing you the proper way to cite the APA guide to preparing manuscripts for journal publication. Notice that it's the author's name, initials have a space between them. Never use the word and in the reference list. You use the ampersand. The word and is not, it's just out of your vocabulary in the reference list. And then you've got the title, which is it's a book, so it's in italics. And then it's got Washington, D.C., American Psychological Association, but I'm going to tell you that's an error. It should just say American Psychological Association. So I will fix that before I send it back up to y'all. Sorry about that. I missed that one. Okay, so that's the way that you would do a book. Now, there's other ways to do books. For instance, if you don't have an author, like nobody authors the collegiate dictionary. It's a bunch of people, a bunch of editors that put it all together, and they get it from all kinds of different sources. And so, again, it's got no author, so you just put the title. And again, it appears that I have a location there, so I'll have to fix all those before I send that up to y'all. An edited book, you have to put EDS behind it, because what that says is that these people edited this book. They did not write the chapters, they edited the book. So that's why that's what the EDS stands for. And then you've got a edited book with the author, and you've got the author's name in parentheses there. And if you look, you'll see that this is the only place where you'll see the initials before the last name. So this is the person who edited this book, these unabridged journals for this author. Then you've got articles or chapters in edited books. And again, I've got a template there for you that you can follow. If you follow that exactly, you will get it correct. Okay, other types of books, when you're looking at listing pages in parentheses, do not use PG, you use PP. So if you look in there, you'll see it's got PP with a period and then the page numbers. If it was one page, it would just be P with a period. And then these are just other examples where you have to put the edition in. Oftentimes, some of your textbooks might be in their 20th edition because they've been rewritten so many times. So you always need to put the edition if it's more than the one edition. Multi-volume work, again, you list the volumes as opposed to just page numbers. Okay, these are examples of online lecture notes. If it's a PDF document, notice that you put the PDF in brackets and where it came from. You know, you got it from Beachboard. Non-periodical web documents, like they came from a database or somewhere that's there to stay. Periodical meaning it comes out more often than just, you know, when you've got magazines, journals, they're periodical. They come out ever so often. Whereas opposed to a database, it's more than likely there to stay unless they update that database by getting more data. Are we doing okay? Do I have any questions? Y'all can also type questions into the chat room. Dr. Perley has graciously agreed to check the chat room. Okay, online periodicals and journals. If you look at this, you'll see the, look at the last name and then the initials and then the year and then the type of article, the title of the article. Notice it is not in italics, but the title of the periodical is in italics. The way you need to think about this is the highest level is what's italicized. If you're looking at a chapter in a book, the title of the chapter is not italicized, but the book is italicized. So whatever the highest level is and what you're resourcing is what's going to be italicized. Then if you look at the next one, it's for the journal Psychology and Marketing. And notice that it doesn't, all it has is the DOI as opposed to having any kind of information where it came from or any of those. It's got your DOI for you there. That's because that DOI is only for that article or that magazine. So you can always find it that way. It's independent of anything else. So that's why the DOI is kind of like when you used to get books off the library shelves and they would have their own specific number. Well, that's what this is. Then if you don't have a DOI, then you tell which website it came from. And this is different from before where they did not want the retrieve date. If it's something that can be changing or taken down or moved or anything that might disappear, then you need to say when you retrieved it. You need that date there so that people can know that how current it was. Newspapers, you notice here the newspapers you need the year, the month, and the day, the title of the article, the title of the newspaper, and the name of the newspaper. So it's in some cases, you know, the title of the newspaper may be the same as the name, or it may be different. Maybe it's a special issue, so it would have a different name for the title. And then what address you got it from, the URL. All right, some of you will be using dissertations in your research. There are several places you can get full dissertations. And when you are documenting or a dissertation, this is the format that you use for that. You need to be sure and put in brackets what the dissertation is, if it's doctoral or master's, and the name of the institution that you got it from. So this example shows you from this individual did a dissertation on networks of communication in emergency medical services, what the publication number was, that it was doctoral, it came from Purdue. ProQuest dissertations is where it rounds up all the dissertations that are out there. You could go and if you just were curious, you could go online and look at ProQuest and you could look up Dr. Perley's dissertation. Hers is considerably more recent than mine, and you would probably have more trouble finding mine because there's like probably 5,000 Linda Martinez's, but you might not have as much difficulty finding Dr. Perley's. Okay, then this is how you do online encyclopedias and dictionaries. Again, just follow the outline. I've got exactly what you need, the institution or organization, the year, the title of the entry, and the URL. And then there's an example right below it to show you how to do it. These are chapters or segments in web documents or online books. They are a little bit different than a hardcover book. In today's world, the majority of the things you'll be finding will probably be online documents, particularly during this time period, because really all of us can't really get to the library. We can't get to it either. Y'all can't get to it, we can't get to it. The best you can do is hope that they have something, you can order it and they can have it outside the library in lockers that you can pick it up. But most of us are very dependent on the internet right now. Okay, again, here's electronic books. Notice that you have to put the HTTP or you have to have a DOI. Otherwise, no one will be able to find it. The purpose of a reference list is so that someone else can go and look up what you're talking about. If you're ever doing a paper, here's a little hint that one of my professors told me. If you're doing a paper on something and you're having trouble finding information, all you need to do is find one good reference or resource, and then you could use their references because more than likely they're going to have the kind of thing you're looking for also. So that gives you a heads up on how to get to more information. Okay, forums and discussion boards. Notice that you put who has it, what the title of it is, and where it's from, the URL. And then these are just other types of references, government documents. Those are great sources of information. Conference proceedings, that is things that were presented at conferences, and then they actually post them onto CDs or onto websites so that you can, if you didn't get to go to the conference, you can still see the papers. And then we're going into citations in the text. Now, there's a couple of things you need to remember about citations in the text. If you actually mention the author's name, like in this first one where it says research by Wegner and Petty, you use the word and because it's actually part of the sentence. And the date goes after the author, right up there in the sentence, not at the end. Now, if you said it differently, if you just said recent research supports blah, blah, and then you put and did not use the author's name in the sentence, then you would put it in parentheses at the end with the ampersand. Okay, if you've got a work by 3 to 5 authors, you list the author's name followed by et al. You don't want to put 20 authors' names in the text. I know that would help to considerably beef up your word count, but according to APA, you only put 3 to 5. If it's more than that, then you're going to use et al. Okay, again, if you're looking at citations in the text, if it doesn't have an author, you cite the source by its title in a signal phrase or use the first word or two of the article in parentheses. You italicize the titles of books and reports. That's the only time you italicize them in the text. Titles of articles, chapters, web pages are in quotation marks. APA calls for capitalizing important words. But remember, that's not the same rules as in the reference list. If the article actually says anonymous, and that doesn't normally happen, normally it's just up there and you just can't find an author. But if it says anonymous, then you treat that just like it's the author. Now, this is also important to know. Interviews, letters, emails, any kind of person-to-person communication that only you have access to, you cite it in the text, but it does not go in the reference list. This is the only case where you don't have it both in the reference list and in the text. Because the purpose of the reference list, again, is for people to be able to go find the information that you have there. And clearly, they can't find it if it's just sitting on your computer. So if it's anything like that, interviews, letters, emails, that only gets cited in the text. Remember, and I hound all of y'all that have had me, I know you're shaking your head saying, oh yeah. If it's a direct quote, you must have a page number or a paragraph number. Otherwise, it's plagiarism. So if you're using quotation marks, it's a direct quote, then be sure that you either count down to the paragraph or you put a page number. If it is a PDF that you got on the web, then you would use page numbers off the PDF. But if it's just a website that doesn't have page numbers, then you just need to count down to what paragraph it is. Okay, and then Dr. Perley's going to go into a little bit more of this, but this is basically the formatting for your research papers. Dr. Perley, would you like to do this? She's not hearing me. Okay.
Sorry, I had to unmute. Okay, well then I'll just use your slide as opposed to going to Purdue Owl, do you think?
Whichever you want to do, we can do both.
Okay, you know, I think what I'd like to do is introduce Purdue Owl. Why don't we just skip through this piece of the PowerPoint for right now?
Okay.
Why don't we just go ahead and have you complete this PowerPoint and then I'll bring us back to the paper.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
All right, so I'm through. So this is the source of the APA handout. As you can see, it's got a link directly to Purdue, which is where Dr. Perley is going to take you now, as soon as I release this sharing. Oh, well, we do have a little bit more common grammar errors. This is just things that I need for y'all to be aware of because you will lose points on this. Be sure that you have commas after prepositional phrases. Be sure that you double space your APA, including the references. We understand that indenting sometimes gets out of whack on Beachboard, but anything else that you turn in, be sure you have that outdenting on there. Do not, under any circumstances, use a lowercase I when you're talking about yourself. we've all gotten a little lazy in typing because of texting and emails, and the standard of writing has dropped a little bit. But by anybody's book, a lowercase I is unacceptable when you're speaking about yourself. Okay, I'm going to send this link up to y'all in a few minutes, but this link is actually free access to the APA website that normally you would have to pay for. And while coronavirus is going on, they're letting you actually go in and look at the APA website. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing and turn it over to you, Dr. Perley.
Okay, let me ask you all, are you like numb? Are you like, what just happened? Or are you all following? Because I can tell you, in my undergraduate program, I did not pay attention to APA, and I think my grades did reflect that. My master's program, it really wasn't that emphasized, but in my doctorate program, it was very heavily emphasized. And Dr. Martinez is the lady who really helped me move on, and she would tell me these things, and I would just be like, what? A period? What? And it was so frustrating for me. So I wonder if you feel kind of glazed over by this, or are you okay? You following it? Okay, a little bit. What I would like is for you to really try and relate all these things to papers that you write yourself. So instead of just going, okay, these are the rules, just like think back. Maybe you pull up a paper that you maybe lost points on, or contact your instructor, or perhaps Dr. Martinez or myself, and then we can walk you through it. I really like Purdue OWL, and I'm going to take you into that. Just let me pull up a tab for it. Whenever here, I'll just, let me show you. Doesn't seem like that's, let me try and refresh the screen here. There we go. Okay, can you all see just my basic Google search screen? Okay, yeah. So when I write anything that's academic, based on everything that I learned from Dr. Martinez and all of the lessons, the hard lessons I learned through my doctorate program, when I write anything that's academic, I go to the Purdue OWL website. So it's owl.purdue.edu. Now, if any of you have either one of us, Dr. Martinez or myself, this is already in your course shell as a resource. But I would open up one tab for the in-text citations and then another tab for the reference section. So first, let's find our APA guide. So here it says APA Formatting and Style Guide. Let me click on that again. And then that takes us right into what we need to know. Now it says 7th edition. I think Dr. Martinez is going to review some of the differences between the 6th and 7th edition, which I think is a little confusing for you all now, because some of your instructors are using 6th edition and some of them are using 7th edition. So unfortunately, you're just going to have to refer back to your syllabus to see which one is required. So I would literally open up 2 tabs. So I'm going to copy this link. I'm going to open up a second tab. This one will be for the references, so basic rules, and then this one will be for in-text information. That's how I suggest you do it. Now, for basic papers, it's literally on this home page here, general format. And it goes into the major paper sections. Now, I am kind of, I would hope that you all would maximize your points by going to this and really looking at it. It says that your essay should include 4 sections. So your essay should be submitted as one document, which includes your title page, your abstract, your main body of the paper, and then your reference section. right? These sections are not submitted separately. And then in here, it goes through a student paper, which you would be using now. The cover page or the title page has changed quite a bit. Let me see, there's a chat message here. Okay, so you have the page number in the top right corner. Now you have to be careful because sometimes when you upload to Beachboard, it will change the formatting. Now I think I don't count off points if I see it in the left corner because I know that happens. I think Dr. Martinez is also aware of this, but some of the other instructors may not be. So it is worth taking the time to change your Word document to a PDF prior to uploading. That way your formatting does not get distorted. So you're going to have the title of your paper, you're going to have your name, you're going to have your department, our school, fully spelled out, California State University, comma, Long Beach. Now, a lot of students will go CSU. We don't want to use abbreviations in academic papers. We want to always spell everything out to where. NJ, can you clarify to where? I'm not sure what that means. And then we always put a comma after university because there are multiple state universities in California, like we have LA, we have Northridge, Riverside. So it's the proper way to write it out is California State University, comma, Long Beach. Then you have your course title, your course name, right? This is very new. This is all new with 7th edition. You have your instructor's name, and then you have the date. Okay, then you move on. I really like Purdue OWL because it tells you like your author's notes. It tells you how to do your abstract. It tells you here, this is what it looks like. There is no indentation on the abstract like there is in your paper. So it really paints the picture for you. If you go here into sample APA paper, then it will give you more details. Like the title should be blank, centered, bold, and written. This is the running header for a professional paper versus the student paper. So here's the student paper. There's no header on the student paper, but there is on the professional paper. Now, if you go to the student paper on page 2, then it changes. I don't know why this is so small. Well, maybe this. Let's see if this pulls it up bigger. Okay, so it'll give you the formatting and it'll give you instructions for each section. So spell out abbreviations the first time you use them. This is for acronyms. For the source with 2 authors, use the ampersand. So it takes time. And so if I go back to my first comment to you is like, do you guys feel blurry-eyed? APA is not easy. It's extremely detail oriented. And for people that are big picture thinking people, these details are just tortuous, but that is how APA is. And you just have got to work through the details if you don't want to lose your points. Okay, so if you just work through this, then it'll give you descriptions. So the word abstract should be centered and bolded. That's the same for student and professional paper. And then it'll take you through like the next page, like your running header that you should be indenting now. The page numbers in the top right corner. Here, spell out abbreviations. It'll tell you how to do the acronyms. Here it says use an ampersand for the and, don't spell it out. So it's really worth taking the time to go through the sample paper to tell you exactly how to do it. It'll show you when you put your parentheses in. Here, U.S. Department of Education. So it says here we've cited a source that does not have a named author. The corresponding reference list entry would begin with. So it really spells all these things out for you. And then if you want to go just straight to like the basics for in-text citations, you just click on that link and it'll just tell you basics like, how do you handle quotes? What do you do with short quotations? And Dr. Martinez said you use the P, period. If you have quotation marks, here's the quotation mark. Students often have difficulty using APA style, especially when it was their first time. Then you have to add the P, period. Now, even though I think that both Dr. Martinez and I write this into comments to help you identify this, I think until you really get the hang of it, this will really, it literally gives you the templates like Dr. Martinez's PowerPoint. So here we have the quotation marks, we have the name, the date, comma, P, period, and the page number. And if you just think about it, like, why would I need the page number for a quote? Well, some of these articles are 30, 40 pages long. If I want to find an exact quote, that would be very difficult to find the quote. So here now we have the location, page 199. So it just really walks you through it. Now, when you do your in-text citations, you go here to authors. A work by 2 authors, use the ampersand, right? 3 or more, use the et al. Basically, any paper that you write that has a source listed in the reference section will need an in-text citation. They need to match. Okay, if it's an unknown author, organization is the author. So it really just gives you all these options and you just pick which one applies to you. If you go into the reference list, it's very similar. So you have the basic rules, the authors, if you're using an article in a periodical, a book, an electronic source, a non-print source. So sometimes you might not know, like if it's a YouTube video, well, I don't know, is that like, where does that go? So maybe you want to look in electronic sources and try and find it there. But when you look through here, you will find every source that you're using and you will be able to format it as it should be. Now, when I entered my doctorate program to help me learn this, I did buy some software. I think the Word, Microsoft Word also offers APA formatting. The problem with these things, and also with, if you just look it up on the internet, is that they may not be 7th edition. They may be 6th edition or even 5th edition. And so it is more painstaking, but it is really better to go to the leading source, which is Purdue OWL. Find where you need to look and really just work through it. Now, nobody memorizes all this stuff. I reference back to this on things that are not commonly used. I think everybody does. But this way you have like one source where you can basically find everything, or you can use Dr. Martinez's PowerPoint and Common Mistakes. Those are also good resources. But if you aren't, you know, if you don't have that accessible, then you could, like you're at your parents' house or on vacation or something, you can always find Purdue OWL. Okay, so Dr. Martinez, is there anything you wanted to talk about with this?
No, let me get back.
Yeah, I'll stop sharing right now. There you go.
Okay, I'm trying to get back up to, okay. No, I just think that one thing that I always tell my students is that if you're looking for something, when Dr. Perley and I were in school, well, me more than Dr. Perley, you had to look it up in the manual. Anything you needed, you had to search for it in the manual. That is really unpleasant at best. And so now if you want to find something out, all you really need to do is go to Google and say APA format reference list book. And it'll pop you right into the OWL or some of the other ones that are out there. So it's really a lot easier than it was in days gone by because you don't have to depend on the book. You know, there are some things maybe that the book is good for that you can't find as easily on the web, but for most of the stuff that y'all be using, if you don't know how to do it, you know, and you don't have any access to anything quickly, just type it into Google and it will pop in there right for you. So that's one of the best hints I can give you. If it's in question, type it into Google. You know, you can be on a computer and you can type it into your phone or whatever, you know, where it's right there, you can just copy it right off. As Dr. Perley said, the Purdue OWL is great about actually telling you, it's really like a little sample for you, a little template. All you do is just fill in those pieces. And I will tell you too that the ones that do it for you, the APA the creators, they create the website, the citation for you, 9 times out of 10, they is not correct. It will be broadly correct, but you'll have to go in there and fix things. They put things in there that don't belong there. It just doesn't work like it should. In theory, it's really a great thing to have. I had a program when I was doing my dissertation called OneNote, and as you were looking stuff up, a little index card would pop up and you would type all the information in there so you could go back and find it. One of the worst things that can happen to you is you're researching, you find a great article, and then you don't know where you found it. It's gone. So this OneNote, and now they've got a lot of free sources for that, will allow you to type all the information in. Then they tell you, we'll make a reference list for you. Well, they make the reference list, but you better know what APA is because you're gonna have to fix it. So, but I would do recommend that when you're doing a lot of research that you use those notes, the yellow stickies that you can get on the computer, or some of these programs that allow you, and they actually ask you questions. They say, who's the author, you know, what's the date of publication, you know, who's the publisher, all those things, and you just type it in there. So whether or not it creates the proper APA citation for you, it will definitely be there for you to use so you can make the right citation. So make use of the technology that's available. Our library has several different ones that you can tap into right on the website. Okay, so am I taking them now to the common mistakes?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so let me hope that I can get to it. It's not gonna do it. Okay, give me 1 second. I've got to, I guess I have to open it somewhere else. Here's my file.
One comment I'd like to make while Dr. Martinez is finding the document is, as she was saying, you can find sources to just create these things for you, but it's kind of like that saying, and I don't know the exact saying, but like you really need to do it yourself. And you can look at these sources, but they're really just crutches. I mean, literally they're crutches for you to hang on to and not really take the time to learn these things. And especially if you go into academia or any graduate program, it is just more time consuming to have to rely on these sources than just whip it out yourself. So I think as your confidence builds in your APA formatting, then you will rely less, is I think our hope. You will rely less on these tools and be able to just do it, or just pull Purdue OWL and do it on your own.
Okay, I was just trying to figure out how to, for some reason, maybe because I'm not the host, but it's not allowing me to upload those. So we're gonna figure that out in a minute. But
you want me to, maybe I can show it.
And then I can show it. I just can't upload the PowerPoint stuff they wanted. Normally the file allows me to upload it and they can download it from the chat. But for some reason, it is not letting me upload. It's asking me to get it from Dropbox or somewhere. So maybe Gabe can turn over the hosting to me in just a minute. Okay, this is the common mistakes and helpful tips for writing papers in the healthcare administration department and elsewhere for that matter. These are just some examples that to help you look at when you're doing some of these that you will do commonly. For instance, like the first example is for a PowerPoint slides from the web, and you put the name of it and the PowerPoint that it came from Beachboard, and then you put the link where you got it. Pretty simple stuff, you know. It's this is pretty basic. There's a couple examples there for you, and I keep having to move these pictures around. Lecture notes, here's another example for you. Remember, you have to tell the reader what it is, you know, that it is lecture notes or it's a PowerPoint or whatever it happens to be. When you're looking at books, we went over some of this in the PowerPoint presentation. When you're looking at books, remember, you've got spaces between the initials. Be sure you have a date there. Whatever you do in APA, you need dates. If there's not a date, then you need to put ND for no date because they want to know that whoever's looking at it wants to know that you are, it's not just a mistake that you didn't put the date there. There isn't a date. You'll find stuff like that on the website a lot where they don't date it. And people, website developers do that deliberately because if they don't date it, then it can stay up there longer because you really have no way of knowing it's 5 years old or whatever it happens to be. So on the part of many web developers, it is a conscious effort not to put a date on there. I used to develop websites for some of the music bands and singers, and I had a tendency to not date it also because I had to go back and fix it really often if you put a date on it. But then eventually I did start putting dates because you have to let people know when concerts and stuff are, and it's like 3 years old or something. But people do tend to not put dates on, especially older websites. Then you've got, here's another example of how citing a textbook. If you've had 457 or 417, you will recognize these books. Then on down the line, how to cite a word from the dictionary. This sometimes throws people off. Now, here's some of the common mistakes that are made over and over and over again. Be sure you do not cap all the words in the title, but be sure you always cap the proper nouns and the proper names and the first word after the colon. When citing in the text, be sure you use the author's last name and the date in the parentheses. Do not put their initials when you're doing it in the text. It's only the last name. If there is a quote, you must have a page or paragraph number. On down, they use an author's initials when citing in the text. Use only the last name. Do not use those initials, period. Do not, under any circumstances in my class, use a small I unless you want a tongue lashing. And then always cap it. It shows who you are. When you go out and get a job, the people who are going to be looking at your resume and looking at your paper saying why you want to work, your reasons as to why you want to work or why you want to go to graduate school, I can tell you right now that small I could get it put right into the trash because it shows that you're not careful in what you're writing. I used to review graduate student applications at the University of Houston, and if they had any kind of grammar like that, they went straight off my desk into the trash can. So, and I don't stand alone. Wouldn't you say that's true, Dr. Perley?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, so be very careful about your grammar. Remember that APA is outdented. The first line is flush left. Another thing that students often use, and I think maybe it's because it's what MLA does or Chicago, but you do not put works cited, you put references. And the citations in the reference list are alphabetized by the author's last name, unless you have several by the same author. And remember, if you have several by the same author, it goes by the most recent, the oldest first, and then goes down to the most recent. Let's see, you don't number them. People love to number their references. My students just love to number their references. Do not number them. You will see journal articles and different places where references are numbered, but that is not APA. That is some other formatting. In reality, it's just a little information for y'all. There are more than 500 different types of formattings. Like the chemistry people have their own. All the different professional groups have their own, but the three main ones are APA, MLA, and Chicago. So those are the ones you'll see the most often, but there are many, many out there. Be sure you put spaces between authors' initials. And do not use Wikipedia if you can avoid it at all. And I'm going to tell you why. This is my lecture for you from a web developer. Wikipedia is a self-publishing medium, meaning that anybody, you could put up there anything you wanted to, and there's nobody to turn around and say, that's not correct. So Wikipedia is not, sometimes it is, you know, it has good information, but always it's written by just people, and they can put anything they want to up there. So that's why your professors really don't like to see you use Wikipedia, because no one is governing it. It's whatever you want to put up there, and they can be put up there. Okay, always show a date. Be sure you have ND for no date if there's no date there. My recommendation is always to write anything you're going to turn in, whether it's on Beachboard or whether it's in the Dropbox or wherever it happens to be, write it in Word and then transfer it over, because Word will catch a lot of those mistakes. They're going to cost you points. There's also a program called Grammarly, I think is the title of it. I have a professor I used to have, says she uses that all the time. And she's actually a Harvard graduate. So it's no shame to use any kind of technical assistance that you can get. I can tell you right now, if I could make the computer type by itself, I would. So whatever kind of technical assistance you can get, you know, use it. It doesn't make you worse. It makes you work smart. Okay, always proof everything. Proof. I can tell you that it's really easy to make a mistake and not catch it, because in your mind, you're thinking, that's what I wrote. So what you're seeing is what you think you wrote, but in reality, it may be something totally different on that paper. Like a word may be left out, you know, or there's any number of things. I can tell you that I read so many dissertations when I was working on mine, I thought, I will never have these kind of mistakes. Right after mine published, I saw a mistake just like that, missing a word on the first page of mine. So I can tell you, it happens to all of us. And so read very carefully and get someone else to read it also, because somebody else will pick up what your brain is seeing there that's not actually there. Use the ampersand. Do not use and in reference lists, period. Do not use and in the parentheses. You use the ampersand. Don't change the order of the authors just because it fits better on the line. The order of the authors is extremely important. It's the level of how much participation they had. And I can tell you, authors in academia get bent out of shape if they're moved from first author to last because their name was too long or whatever it happens to be. So be careful you keep it as the same order that's in the book or journal. Then you always start with the smallest part, meaning you put what the chapter is, then you put the title of the book, or you put what the title of the article is, then you put the title of the journal. So it's always the smallest entity. The order is the smallest entity first. Be sure you put spaces after periods. They get jammed up a lot in the stuff. And we do realize that Beachboard can be really tacky about doing stuff like that to you. So most of us do not count off for that. We just tell you, be careful to do it, because Beachboard does tend to be a little stinky about some of that stuff. Don't put periods after URLs, because if you put a period after URL, it might even tell you that URL doesn't exist, because you've just added an extra symbol to the URL. So it'll kick you like this page doesn't exist or something like that. Don't put DOIs after numbers either. Again, hanging dent, indent, outdent, whatever you want to call it, first line flush left. The rest of them 5 spaces in. Okay, don't use a link that goes to a subscription database. Can anybody tell me why you wouldn't do that? Anybody know?
If
No?
somebody doesn't,
I'm sorry?
if somebody doesn't have subscription, would it
You are
even?
so right. You hit the nail on the head. If someone doesn't have that subscription, then they're going to end up at a page that's spinning, you know, and it's going to be annoying and irritating to them. So it's better, you know, just don't put it. So, okay, then these are just a few rules of thumb that you need to remember. And again, here's the link for Al Purdue that we are telling you that you should use, but this really rules of thumb really is basically the same stuff that I've already gone over. So, and Dr. Perley went over some of the information with you about abstracts and parts of the paper, so I'm going to leave that. when Gabe turns over a hosting spot to me, I will upload all this stuff for y'all into the chat room. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing this one, and I'll go to just quickly go over the differences between the two. And I will also be sending that to y'all for those of you that know 6 and wonder what's different with 7. So this is basically, if I can get it to, this is what it looks like, and it's got a line out showing you the differences between them. And as you can see on the first one, you've got in 7th edition, you've got the DOI, and it's got HTTPS in front of it. In the 6th edition, it did not. So if you learned it one way, be sure you change your way of thinking. On this one, it's got retrieve from. You don't use the retrieve from with the HTTPS with the URLs unless you're putting a date in there because it's a dynamic page that constantly changes. More and more, you'll be using videos from YouTube and various other places. This is how you do it correctly. Again, do not use retrieve from. So I'm not going to go over the rest of these, but these are just showing you the differences. So if you have been used to using it the other way, you kind of look here and say, oh, I need to change the way of doing that. But these are the major differences that between the two. These were done from some librarians. Okay, I think that takes care of what I was going to do. So I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Perley.
Okay. I think that's what Dr. Martinez and I wanted to cover in terms of APA. I did bring up a paper that is anonymous, meaning I took out the name, just to show you more about how this actually works in real life. So let me go ahead and share the screen. And now you can see the sample paper, right? Running Ahead American Workplace. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes, we can see it.
All righty. So if you recall, there's got to be a page number in the top right corner. So we already know that there's an issue here. Also in Purdue OWL, with the sample title page, there's no running ahead on the cover sheet. So if I really wanted to figure this out, I would go back over here and I would look up my Purdue OWL, which is here. I would go back to my APA guide, my formatting and style guide, and then I would go down to that sample paper. But you could do this, but the sample paper will give you all the pieces to it. So you can see that this paper should not have a running head. It should have a page number. And then there's only 2 pieces here. So if I go back to Purdue OWL, I can see that it should have the name of the paper. It should have my name, meaning the student's name. It should have the department, the university, the course number, the course name, the instructor's name, and then the date. So off the bat, I know that this is not a properly formatted APA 7th edition cover sheet. And what a shame, right, to lose points on this, because it's so easy just to look up Purdue OWL, cover page, type that stuff in, and then you get full points on it. So I would suggest doing that. Here's another example, the abstract. So here we have, what, 4 paragraphs with abstract. If I go to Purdue OWL, abstract, sample, it's all 1 paragraph. There is no indentation. It shows the keywords. So it will really help you miss points on just basic formatting stuff. Okay, I did want to talk just for a moment about writing clarity. In college, you all are really graduating from a 4-year university. You're getting your bachelor's degree. There's an expectation for writing ability once you graduate from this program. And many times, your writing will precede you, meaning no one will meet you, no one will talk to you, no one will see you. It will be literally just the presentation of you through your writing. And as Dr. Martinez said, like for little eyes, you just immediately throw it away. In my case, it was looking at resumes because I was an administrator for a nursing home. And when I looked at resumes for potential employees, if I saw any formatting errors, any grammar errors, any abbreviations, that sort of thing, again, just the trash. Because especially in healthcare, we cannot have any shortcuts, right? In our field, people can die if people are being not meticulous with detail. So I think that was our point on those sorts of things, but then also the writing clarity now in the sample paper. So what I usually do when I meet with my students is I'll read to them some of the sentences and then give them an idea of how I might write it. So here, for the average individual, the workplace is like a second home. Okay, then I'm not really sure. Let me go back to the title. Overworking, comparison of work cultures in the United States and Sweden and how the American workplace can be improved. Okay, I don't think that this sentence really says much in relation to the title, right? It's very bland. I would instead say something like comparison of work cultures and how American workplace. So I might say something like the workspace in different countries varies greatly. However, However, in the American or in the United States, this paper is going to discuss how that environment can be improved. Here it says the typical workplace replaces the bed with a desk, the dining table with a water dispenser, and the family members with other salary earning family members. What do you guys think this means?
Just trying to compare it, I guess, to, the two different the two different places that people are spending time. But I don't know. I don't like using the same like terms within, I don't know, like 10 words of each other. So saying the family members twice thing, that kind of threw me off too.
Right. Right. So typically in higher level writing, especially in academics, we don't use the same words twice in the same sentence. Also, I find this confusing. Like, I think it would be better to say the workplace, which typically includes blank, is now replaced with blank as people have transitioned to working in the home. Something more descriptive on why are these comparisons being made. Here, the average worker, at least in the United States. So because this paper by the title is going to be a comparison of countries, I would use this as a place to put the acronym. So I would put United States, and then I would use the parentheses, U period, S period, or in some cases you can use US. I think both are acceptable. The average worker, at least in the United States, spends 8 hours, a third of their day at work. So another way to say this is a typical workday in the United States includes a third of the day or 8 hours out of the 24 hours. Just something to really make it more clear, like, why are you saying this? A third of the day with the hyphens is odd for an academic writing. In the United States, so if we use the acronym, it would be in the US, men have historically been the breadwinners of the family, with their wife managing their children and the home. Another way to write this would be the United States, so not in, but the United States, historically have had men as the breadwinners while women manage the home and children. So it's a little bit more powerful when you say it more directly with less words. In today's modern environment, both men and women can and do take up work for both themselves and their families. So here we have historically, maybe a comparison could be, but current times or in current times or currently, traditional roles for men and women have changed so that we have dual income families. So the writing is, it's just not definitive enough. Do you see that? For me, as the reader, it's like, well, wait, I have to put this together. When I'm reading something, I want it to be just, I'm reading it and I'm just absorbing the information as opposed to actively trying to figure out what that person is saying. And so this is just an example of how writing can be elevated by simplifying it. I think a lot of students, to meet word requirements, will add in extra words, but it actually dilutes the power of the sentence as opposed to strengthening it. So if you want me to continue giving you examples of how I might rewrite this, I could. Here is a date, so I'm thinking it's some sort of in-text citation. Here, as identified by Mark Abdi, a Business Insider. So really the date should go up here after Insider for a properly formatted in-text citation, not at the end. Let's see, let's find another. Here they have the acronym, but I'm not sure it was properly identified earlier. Well, actually, I know it wasn't. Here, Miller, comma 2018 at the end of the sentence. Parentheses around it, period after the end. Does that look right? I think that looks right. Very good. Here, additionally, when looking at gender, 85.8% of males and 66.5% of females work more than 40 hours per week. Okay, that needs to be cited. So when there are statistics that people just, nobody's just going to know that off the top of their head. That this person had to have found this through research, which means that it has to have an in-text citation. So sometimes when you lose points, when students lose points on APA, sometimes it's because of this. It's just, it's not cited at all when it should be. So why would I want this cited? Because I would want to go maybe look at that source to see what the context of where these numbers came from. How did they use them? Okay. So here, 2013, I don't see a name. So then you'd have to, off the bat, I'm thinking that shouldn't be there by itself. There should always be the last name, comma, and the year. Right, so that's probably an error. It says, the origins of the United States overworked culture is reiterated and reinforced in a journal article by blank, where she highlights overwork culture in the context of gender. I think a more straightforward way to write this would be Youngju Cha 2013 states blank. That would be a more powerful way to state this information with the option of proper APA formatting. You put the year right after the name. Does that help you understand how instructors will look at the writing and how the APA coordinates with the sentences? Okay, well, so do you have any, I mean, this was just kind of a throw-in that we weren't really going to go over college level writing. I just had the paper, so wanted to bring that in. But if you wanted to meet with us in a separate session, we could go over this more. But I think it's very important way to maximize your points and elevate the quality of your writing in APA to like a college level by making sure that your sentences are powerful and that you use the sources with every time you cite. Use Purdue OWL, use Dr. Martinez's PowerPoint so that you get into the practice of it. And the more you do it, the more you won't have to use resources. It'll just be like memorized. And then you can just use the proper formatting. Dr. Martinez, is there anything else you would like to add in?
No, I think that we covered everything we meant to cover tonight, and I am unable to upload. The computer is being, or something, Zoom or something is not allowing me. So I sent all the documents to Gabe, and he will be sending them out to everyone that is here. Other than that, I also said that you and I were available for them if they have questions about anything, and that they could email us.
Absolutely. And also, I really want to say that Dr. Martinez and I, we really appreciate you joining the workshop. To us, this is very important information. We value it, we practice it, we respect it, we understand how it fits into academia, and we appreciate you all spending your time, almost 2 hours, well, an hour and a half-ish, of your time really coming here to learn how to do this in a more effective way. And so we thank you for your time.
Well,
Thank you, Gabriel, for pulling this together for us also.
Of course. Well, thank you both also for your time and sharing all the knowledge that you have for us about APA. It was actually very helpful. I know it was a lot, but we'll be sending out the videos and those documents soon, so everyone can brush up on it if, you thought that was important, but then like it happened at the beginning, so it's a little not fresh anymore. But thank you for coming.